My friends, we are about to embark on the most odious, the most evil, the most diabolical scheme of my illustrious career. Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today, we are revealing a brand new card from Rise of the Floodborn. I know a lot of people will just want to get to seeing the card, so if that's you, there's a timestamp for you. We'll show you the card and we'll talk all about all the combos and all the dissection I've done into this card. But I have to start off by saying just such a huge thank you to Disney Lorcana, to the Ravensburger team, for giving me this opportunity. I got the message like 2 days ago and absolutely blew my mind. I was hoping for it. I did not expect it. Genuinely, I've got very much imposter syndrome, to be honest, because I want to be worthy of it, because it really does mean so very much to me. Yeah, it's been a long few years for everyone, but yeah, this has been an absolute blessing, and I'm so very grateful. I do understand just how privileged I am to get to do one of these. Still being, I'm so proud of our growth and to all the supporters, but I am still a small channel. And yeah, so I want you all to know I do understand just how privileged I am. I am so extremely grateful. It means the world to me. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say other than I hope I can prove worthy of it. And it's got to be a huge thank you to all the people, whether it's on YouTube or over on Twitter or both, that have been supporting me and liking my stuff and sharing my stuff, because they definitely wouldn't have got under Disney Lorcana Rise if it wasn't for that. So thank you so much for your support. It really does mean everything. But here we are. Let's jump into the newest card from Rise of the Floodborn. This card, as you've already seen from the opening, is called the Most Diabolical Scheme. It is an action and song. Now that immediately is quite interesting, because from the beginning we've had songs that are just a line from a song, like we had Sudden Chill from Cruella de Vil, and there's been some announcements recently, like we got Teeth and Ambitions coming from Be Prepared. We already had the Be Prepared song. But what's interesting about this is this line is not in the song, The World's Greatest Criminal Mind. It is the line that is part of the monologue that precedes Ratigan singing The World's Greatest Criminal Mind. And I believe, when I'm editing, I'll do another quick check, and if I'm wrong, I'll put an edit here. But I believe this is our first song card with a line that actually isn't in the song. Now, of course, it's very closely associated with it, because it's, like I said, the monologue that precedes it. So love that. This card is a 3-cost uninkable, and at this point, we can show you the art properly, and my god, is this incredible. And if you know my channel, you know I'm not just saying that because this is my reveal. I would have said that anyway. Look at this. This is stunning. The shadow on the wall, just I need this framed. I mean, probably anyway, because it's my reveal card, but nonetheless, I feel like I'd have said this. And just an extra thing to do with the thank yous, like the fact that they gave me a Ratigan card, just I'm so grateful. But yes, the Most Diabolical Scheme is an action song, 3-cost uninkable. Let's show you what it does. Now comes the real tour de force, tricky and wicked, of course. I'm not going to do the whole thing again. You've seen it, you've heard it. Maybe you haven't, but go to Twitter if you want to hear more of it. But yes, this card, a character with 3 or more can exert to sing this song for free. Banish chosen villain of yours to banish chosen character. The artwork here by Carlos Ruiz, which I hope I'm saying correctly. I believe this is their first card, or at least they may have others in Rise of the Floodborn, but I believe they're a new artist to Rise of the Floodborn. I'll add in an edit if that's wrong, but welcome, Carlos, and with looking at this art, I hope you're here to stay, because this is just stunning. Before we go into depth about the card, because I've got combos and everything to talk about, if you have a little look at this screen, these are all the Ratigan cards we have available to us, and I'm so happy about that. Obviously, there are other Basil cards, and there's Fidget as well, but these are the ones that actually either have Ratigan on them or are just like a direct reference to Ratigan. And I think it's an interesting kind of pattern, because if you look at specifically Ring the Bell, which is the bottom left green one, apologies, I don't have an English copy yet, which is banish any character that already has damage on it. And then we have the World's Greatest Criminal Mind. Shout out to Forbidden Mountain for that release, which is obviously banish a character with 5 or more strength. And then we look at Ratigan, his card. He exerts a character with 3 strength or less. And then Dinner Bell is to do with a character of yours already having damage on it to draw cards. So there's a bit of a pattern here of Ratigan-based cards having an effect that triggers based on damage or strength. So that maybe that's something that we see repeat. Doesn't quite fit the pattern with Ratigan's Marvelous Trap, which is obviously just quite a more unique ability in and of itself. But just something that I thought was interesting to point out. And I imagine that we will get more Ratigan cards. We're still waiting for the Floodborn. And I'm going to say right now that I have a prediction that when we get, whether it's the Floodborn or just another Ratigan, it's going to have some sort of effect that says, when he's banished, he returns to your hand, or if banished by a certain condition, like if this character is banished except in a challenge, return it to your hand, because you can already see some real utility there to combo with the rest of these cards. Will I be right? Who knows? But let's talk about some combos that you could make with the most diabolical scheme. So first of all, strengths of the card. Removal for a 3-cost card is really good. It is one of the lowest costs for a Ruby card that has removal, so that immediately is something that we need to give credit to. It's able to be sung, which is going to save us some ink cost if we are singing it, and it can potentially allow for synergies with cards that can ready characters. So in Ruby we have Fan the Flames, we have LeFou, and again, depending on your colour and what ink you're working with, there are other cards, and Shield of Virtue. So there are cards that can re-ready us, so there's some synergy straight away. Also synergy with cards that search for songs or benefit from songs being played. So the only card that we have that specifically searches a song, or at least lets you dig for a song, is Ariel from Amber. There's also, of course, the newly the Mulan that's coming in Rise of the Floodborn, which allows you to sing a song for free if it's the top card of your deck. So again, if you're running those sort of cards in Amber and you are paired with Ruby for whatever reason, for one of many reasons, it's a great color to be with, then there's some obviously synergy there that we can benefit from. I've put something else here, potential synergy from removing your own villains. Obviously that plays into what I said not long ago about I've got a feeling Ratigan's going to have some sort of ability where if he's banished by a certain trigger that isn't challenging, then he might return to your hand or the field or something. But even if not Ratigan, you know, all it's going to take in the future is our villains that gain benefit from leaving the field, whether that's drawing cards or things like that. You look at cards like in Amethyst, we've got the new Merlin cards coming that have a leaving the board effect. So if we can get some villains that have that sort of thing, then there's some great synergy there that we can benefit from. And of course, it does allow you the opportunity to give a big evil laugh in the middle of your game. Obviously, you know, opponent depending, read the room. We don't want to be upsetting people, but if you feel like your opponent is a good sport, then this is the perfect opportunities to let out a big evil laugh, so we have to give some credit to that. Weaknesses, not a lot on this list, but still things we need to take into account. Uninkable. That's always something that we're going to need to consider when we're deck building, because there are so many good uninkable cards, and you need to make choice decisions. So that's always something that is something that's going to lower this card's strengths to a degree. More situational than other Ruby removal. Obviously, we're going to look at other Ruby cards in a moment, but the first thing that's going to come to a lot of people's minds is Dragon's Fire is right there for a 5 cost, also uninkable, but it just removes anything. So that's something that we do need to admit to and say, right, well, if we're playing this card, we really need to be, there need to be more reasons to play it. Another weakness is it is a 2-for-1, because you're playing even if whether you're singing it or paying for it with ink, then you are playing this card, and then you have to banish one of your villains to banish one of theirs. So it is a 2-for-1. So again, we have to look at all the weaknesses. I was going to leave the top hat on, but it's a bit too small for my head now, and it was starting to give me a headache. It's an old prop from my theatre days. But yes, let's take a look at other Ruby cards, which obviously we're playing this card, we're playing Ruby. So again, I already mentioned there are direct comparisons here to Dragon's Fire, which is one of our better removal cards. Why would you not just play that when it's only 2 ink more? That alone might be a reason. The fact that this is 3 cost allows us to remove some threats that are going to be very early game, and we have a screen later that we'll come to look at meta threats that this might make it worth playing this card. But we have to obviously give credit to Dragon's Fire and Maleficent are already there in Ruby as removal, and you might be playing a 4-3 count or a 4-4 count of that. So again, for this card to make its way into Ruby decks, it really needs to be removing those early meta threats where just turn 5 is just too late. Looking at the rest of the board, I've mostly filled it with villains that are going to be obviously compared with this. If you're running Diabolical Scheme, you need to be running villains. So we've got the upcoming Queen of Hearts with Rush, Impulsive Ruler. That's coming in Rise of the Floodborn. Also upcoming in Rise of the Floodborn, we have Lady Tremaine, who denies the opponent some lore. I expect we're going to see a Floodborn of her at some point, so if that's good enough, maybe this version also makes its way into decks, and that's an extra villain to make this more warranted. We also have Mother Gothel. Shout out to James for the reveal of this. I apologise, I won't remember every person that revealed a card as I get to them, but I'll try and credit as I can. So these are all low-cost villains, and if you're playing this, really you want it to be at least a low-cost villain so that you're not giving up too much ink value. And of course, we already have Arrogant Hunter Gaston there. So these are our lowest-cost villains in Ruby. Also, there's a list over on the far right of more expensive ones. Ratigan upcoming, the new Scar, the old Captain Hook, the old T-Car, the old Scar, and yeah, a bunch of the old Scars. These aren't preferences, but of course, if you play this game, you know that even if it's not a preferred play, there are worlds where you might just do this if you are a turn from game. But so are they, and they have out something that you can't hit, but they will quest for game next turn. Sometimes it's fine to just be able to remove one of your bigger characters, even though it's not preferable, it's stopping them winning the game. So again, if you are running these villains, then that is an option. Let's take a look at the combo options if you are working with Amethyst. So, of course, straight away we need to identify our villains. So our cheap ones, we have Biding Her Time Maleficent, we have Sorceress Maleficent, we have the new Madam Mim coming in Rise of the Floodborn, we have Alchemist Yzma and Charlatan Dr. Facilier from the previous set. So these are our cheapest villains, so for if we're wanting to get main value off of this. Also, of course, worth noting that Madam Mim and Maleficent can sing this. So that's like playing this if you're playing Ruby Amethyst. That doesn't sound awful to me, to turn 3 Maleficent and then turn 4 if you are playing most Diabolical Scheme, even if you just paying for it and then using Maleficent as your self-removal target, then it's not the 2 for 1, it's still a 2 for 1, but you've at least gone +1 on card count from Maleficent, and she might have served her purpose by that point and just be fodder for Steel's removal or whatever it is. So yeah, you can easily quest her and then play this and get her off the field. So something to bear in mind. Madam Mim can also do this. Obviously Madam Mim might be a card that you want to just play into your bounce synergy anyway, and you might not want to remove her. But at the same time, if you play her down, banish a different, return a different character to your hand as a cost of that, you rush, you take something out. By this point, you might have just removed something and then only have 1 willpower left. And if that's the case, you get a lot of value off of this Diabolical Scheme if they've got a couple of characters down. Which again, like against early aggro, like this is where I think most Diabolical Scheme is going to come in the most handy, just removing those like early game threats. Obviously, Yzma, Dr. Facilier, we've talked about as just, cheap ways to get the most value off of this. And the good thing about Yzma is you can quest to get your excused ability off, and then sing Diabolical Scheme, just pay the cost to sing it and then have Yzma be your cost for it. So, and then of course we've got the bigger Dr. Facilier, the Queen and Ursula over there as other potential villain targets for this. Dr. Facilier is potentially the Agent Provocateur is potentially the most interesting one, because there's synergy with playing most Diabolical Scheme to remove one of your other villains and it returns to your hand because of Dr. Facilier's ability. So yeah, there's definitely some combo potential here with Amethyst. We'll go to one of the less exciting colours. I think there's a lot of exciting things to say about all the colours. Sapphire is the card that at the moment I would least recommending you playing this card for, purely because it doesn't have a lot of great synergy. Our cheapest villain is the upcoming Cruella de Vil, who is a great card, nice low 2 cost, but that's it. Your next lowest cost is Maleficent's Sinister Visitor, which you might get value out of it, especially if you've managed to get a challenge off or a quest off and survive the hit with those with that big 4 willpower, kind of big 4 willpower. So maybe you can get some value there. You could say the same about the uninvited Maleficent. She takes a couple of hits from challenging or just questing up, and then once she's about to be gone, maybe it's more valuable for you to use her as fodder for the most diabolical scheme, as opposed to doing one more quest before they take it out. Again, it's going to be board state dependent. And then we've got Scar, the upcoming Gaston, and Hades. Hades is one, maybe. Again, I do recommend this as the colour you play least with Diabolical Scheme. I just don't think, at the moment, it just doesn't have enough villains really to give it full synergy. But Hades is something, you bring it down, you've already got the value off of the ability. Is there a downside to this? And then likely you're able to get off a quest or a challenge and survive the hit, and then most Diabolical Scheme can use Hades as your fodder for the effect. So there's some things you can do here, but definitely the least synergy at the moment. Next up, looking at our potential combos with Steel. Yeah, there's a few interesting things here. So obviously, if you're playing Steel, then you have access to Forceful Duelist Captain Hook, which is a great cheap villain to go with this. So that's obviously a plus. We'll also immediately turn to the Captain Hook, Captain the Jolly Roger, which is interesting if you're playing this engine with Fire the Cannons, because again, Captain Hook, once you put him down, preferably you're then recycling a Fire the Cannons. So you've already got your value off of him. You've already plus one. And then if you can get a quest or a challenge off and survive it, survive a challenge with the 4 willpower, and then use it as your removal target. And bear in mind as well, you could sing with this Captain Hook or with other card and then still use that as the target of most Diabolical Schemes self-banish. So that's a little interesting play you can make there to get a lot of value out of Captain the Jolly Roger. We've got the new Jafar coming as well, Royal Vizier. Love this art, which again is another cheap villain. And of course there's the shifted one, Dreadnought Jafar. That poor camel, man. But yeah, again, 4 costs, so a little bit more than we really want to be spending on our villain, but it's possible that you could do it, especially if you've shifted and already got some value off of that Jafar by challenging into something, drawing a card off of the... Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Abject humiliation. Sorry, I went Jafar. It just came. But yeah, you could do that. I've also put the Prince and Tinkerbell here because these are nice singing potential. These are nice singing partners with most Diabolical Scheme, because the Prince is there as a bodyguarder anyway, and with that resist 1, helping out your characters to survive a challenge before you then use most Diabolical Scheme and make sure you've had a lot full value off of that villain. And of course Tinkerbell here as well. If you've put this down, you are already threatening turn 4 Tink, but it's also possible that you can turn 4 put down a villain and then sing this with Tinkerbell and just remove whatever's in front of you, especially if they're playing around the big Tink. So there's some potential synergy there. And then a list of our other villains available in Steel. We've got Thinking a Happy Thought, Captain Hook, Hans 13th in line, the new Queen of Hearts, and T-Car, which again, probably not your most preferable partners, but something that you can do if you feel the need. So yeah, and especially with the Queen, the new Queen coming, who can re-ready. Definitely some synergy there. So yeah, Steel is an interesting partner for this card. Next, we'll go to Emerald, which is similar to Sapphire. I think it's probably one of the less preferable partners, but there's something here. But we're going to finish off on the most interesting one. But yes, if we look at Emerald, let's take a look at our villains. So we've got the Duke of Weaselton. That's something we do love to see. A nice, really cheap villain that we can use off of this. Also, of course, the Cruella de Vil and the new Queen of Hearts, which that's a pretty good target for this. Again, maybe not because she's got 2 lore that she can quest for, but you already get value from putting her down, assuming there was already a damaged character and you can get Raw Rage off. But yeah, you already get the value there. Again, she does quest for 2, but again, at least it's cheap to go with most Diabolical Scheme. Also, look at the new Queen in Disguise card, which is a whole archetype in itself, and there is some talk going. I know, because I'm doing some of the talking, about Emerald Ruby partnership and just playing some like Emerald has the new Flynn Rider, the shifted one, who is obviously a great target for the Disguised Queen's ability to discard a card and gain lore equal to its lore. So there's worlds here where really you want to keep re-readying the Queen with LeFous and Shield of Virtue and Fan the Flames and stuff. But if you get to a point where you've exhausted your ability to re-ready and you know that they've got something on the field that will just banish your Queen next turn, then maybe that's the perfect time to just, okay, I'm doing all my things, re-readying. Okay, cool, I've still got 3 ink left. That's now played by the Diabolical Scheme. Get rid of this Queen to remove your threat on the board. And I've still got 3 more Queens in this deck at this point. So yeah, there's some synergy there. There's also Hans, which probably isn't the most ideal partner for this because Hans quests for 3, which is probably going to be your preference most of the time, but sometimes it wouldn't be. Sometimes a threat is just going to be too demand. A threat is going to demand an answer. Some synergy with the Lady Tremaine though from Emerald, even though it's a higher cost one. But if you're playing Lady Tremaine, it is simply for her Do It Again ability. So as soon as you've got that card, she's kind of not doing a whole lot else, so maybe she is a pretty good partner for most Diabolical Scheme. Also, we'll take a look at some other villain cards on the far right. We've got Prince John, which again probably isn't your preference to work with this. It might be, because really if you're playing Prince John, you're not questing with him or putting him into an exerted position because you want him safe. So if you're using him as fodder for this card, something probably went wrong, but it is an option there. And of course, we've got the new Varana coming, and John Silver and Mother Gothel are not preferable targets for this, but something you can do. And I've just put Ring the Bell there as well, because that's if you're playing these colours together, you get to play another Ratagoon card, which is always good. But again, you are then competing with the fact that Emerald has a slightly, well, it's kind of, which one is more situational? The fact that you've got to remove one of your own villains with most Diabolical Scheme, or the fact that the target of Ring the Bell has to have a damage counter on them. Regardless, Ring the Bell is inkable, so you are competing with that, but again, still an option for you. So yeah, Emerald has some synergy. Next up, combos for our final ink combination. How about playing some Ruby Amber, and not only benefiting from a couple of villains, and that is kind of the least appealing part of working with Amber, that it doesn't have tons of villains at the moment, but in time. But you do get some song card synergy. So let's look at our villains first. Let's look at Hades, Lord of the Underworld, which is not just a villain archetype card, it is recycled. Hades sees play. So, and again, he's another card that once you've put him down, you have gained the main reason you play him value with the Well of Souls by recycling a card, which could then make him a really prime target for the most Diabolical Scheme. Of course, we have Hades, King of Olympus, and whether it's because villains get really good and this becomes meta, or whether it's because you want to have fun playing a villain deck, which of course I strongly approve of. If you are playing big King of Olympus, then you are playing with a colour. Well, if you're playing with red, you have other villains in red you can play with. My point being, you are playing a lot of villains, so you're absolutely going to get advantage off of that, get value, off of this most Diabolical Scheme. Of course, there's also the new Cinderella coming, who is Singer 3. So, turn 2 most Diabolical Scheme, as long as you have another 1-cost villain that you can put down, which we've seen a couple. So yeah, there's something there, and of course Ariel Spectacular Singer can search this card from the deck. Going on to look at our villains though, we have the Shifted Queen, Commanding Presence, who's coming in Rise of the Floodborn, who might not be your ideal target for this because she has a lot of advantage she can gain from Who is the Fairest by questing with her to manipulate strength on yours and your opponent's side of the field. But again, like I've said with every card, there are situations where you would just do it because you need to remove a threat and it's a villain. Wouldn't it be great if we get a 1-cost Amber Queen? Something like 1-cost Inkable, 2/2 stat line, 1 lore pip. I feel like it's coming. It would just make sense, right? Right? So let's just assume that we're going to get a 1-cost Amber Queen. Now suddenly we have a really great 1-cost character, not only to go with this queen, but as perfect fodder for the most Diabolical Scheme. So wouldn't that be great? And you know, I've just got this feeling that because there is an Amber LeFou, we need to get an Amber Gaston. It just needs to happen. It's bound to happen. We have the Amber LeFou, and he is bound to be a villain. So that gives us another target to go with the most diabolical scheme. And who knows? I mean, there's a song called Gaston. Like, if they gave him singer, even better. You know what I'm saying? Let's also take a look at some other combo cards that go with this. Obviously, in Amber, you're also working with the world's greatest criminal mind. But again, that's similarly to Ring the Bell. It's more situational removal, but it is inkable for the same cost. Zero to Hero, if you are playing like something that benefits from Zero to Hero, you're probably playing a lot of low-cost things. And hey, once we get some more low-cost villains, there will be some synergy there. Dragon Gem, which obviously allows us to recycle cards with support. Give me a villain with support, please. This is what I desire. Give me a villain with support, and then suddenly this becomes so much better. There's the Last Stand, which is another situational removal card in Amber. You have to have already challenged something, but that already opens up a play where if they've got two characters and you've got one, you use your character to challenge into one of theirs. Neither of them are banished. But you then play Last Stand to remove the one that you just challenged, and then you play Most Diabolical Scheme to remove your already weakened card and their second threat. So again, that's a lot of cards, and again, uninkables, but there are worlds and metas where this becomes potentially a thing. And then of course we've got the Mulan that I mentioned earlier, who is able to sing songs for free if it's from the top of the deck. Little note, that does mean you just don't pay the ink cost. It doesn't mean that you don't have to banish a chosen villain of yours. That doesn't mean that's not playing it for free. For free, it means the same as the text that says a character of free or more can exert to sing this for free. You just don't have to pay the ink, just to make that abundantly clear. Now, let's take the time to look at some meta threats as to why you might play this card. Because again, I've been completely honest about this card. I think it has a lot of utility. But again, you need to compare it with things like Dragon's Fire. And then depending on what other color you're playing, Amber has the world's greatest criminal mind. Emerald has Ring the Bell. So you need a really good reason to be able to play this. And I'm going to try and give you some reasons why this might be something that you want to play. Because again, its main benefit is just how early you can play it. And again, different to Ring the Bell, this can be sung. So can the world's greatest criminal mind, but if you're not playing with Amber, then this is a very easily sung removal. So let's look at the early game threats that we might want to remove enough that we warrant playing this card. Pongo and Tinkerbell speak for themselves just as evasive characters. Flynn Rider, again, it's a lower cost, so you're probably not getting great value, but again, just he's questing for a lot, and if you just want to stop him removing cards from your hand, especially like if they've already removed a couple of cards from your hand with all the card discard that Emerald has and is getting, Prince John is something that you are absolutely going to want to remove very quickly if they are playing Emerald. As soon as he goes down, again, they maybe by the time they put him down, they can't immediately start playing hand discard cards. But by the next turn, they probably can. Or if they've gone turn 2 Flynn Rider and turn 3 Prince Rider, then you might just want to be able to get rid of this Prince John, and then you don't mind discarding one card off of Flynn, but you don't want them drawing off the kit off Prince. And again, Prince John is a card that I don't think you're going to see exerted often. It's going to be niche situations where he's questing, because again, that's not what his value is for. So you might absolutely just need to remove that early. Also, Shere Khan, if you're playing against Ruby and they get this down early game, there's some good rushers, not only in Ruby but whatever color they might be playing with, so they may be able to start really getting some big value off of this from turn 4 or 5. Again, if it's turn 5, then you might be able to play Dragon's Fire, but you might not want to, because then that's your turn. Whereas with this, you can sing this, and then you've still got ink to play with. So there are worlds where this comes into meta. We've also got Sisu, which I think I'm saying wrong. I haven't seen Ray of the Last Dragon. I'm sorry. I think it's an okay card. I think it's better than people are giving it credit for. Because you might not always need to use this because they're questing anyway, so they can get the ability off. But again, if you can't hit this 4 quick enough and you don't want them to continue cycling and drawing cards, you might just want to remove this. There's also Simba, depending on what else he's down with, because it's quite reasonable to be able to, by turn 3, like if on your turn 3 you put down a 3 cost to go with a 1 or 2 cost you've already played, and then on their turn, that's when they do the whole Simba extending into things. Then you might just need to get rid of this Simba so that your remaining guys can get rid of the Lilo or whatever it is. Opposing aerials, if you're against Amber, this goes down and you know they're holding the whole new world, or the grab your swords or things like that, and you don't want them getting that for free, so you might just need to remove this straight away. I honestly think aerial is probably one of the prime targets, along with Prince John, for warranting playing this. The opposing Mulan as well from turn 4. This can start to see amazing value, especially if they have good manipulation for the top of their deck. So this might be something you want to remove. The Jafar, again, you might be able to just remove it from challenging, because he'll probably exert himself, but you might not have that option. And if they're just removing your guys and drawing from it, then a potential target. Arthur is something that I think is a very strong motivation to want to play this. Turn 3 they put down their Arthur, and then because then you know from turn 4 they're going to start doing some goat loops and stuff like that, and you just want to shut that down. So if that becomes big enough, then most Diabolical scheme does become kind of necessary. Say the same thing about Merlin. If they play their loop in a way that where they aren't able to put down Merlin Goat and bring it back to their hand in the same turn, and they want to be able to bounce it the next turn with the Madam Mim cards to return cards to your hand, then you might just want to remove this goat before the opponent gets their opportunity to return it to their hand and continue gaining value from it. And of course we've got the upcoming Peter Pan Shadow, who is looking like they're going to be a nuisance, and again, just another early cost threat that you might just want to remove and might warrant playing this card. So, final thoughts. First of all, again, so privileged to get to show off this card. Not only is it a villain card, not only is it a Ratigan card, but I think it's pretty good. Do I think this is going to immediately see meta play as the beginning of Rise of the Floodborn starts? Based on what we've seen of Rise of the Floodborn, not convinced straight away. However, I fully believe that as the time goes on and we get more cards that can do things like aerial and can search songs, we get a Ruby singer, that's a Ruby version of Cinderella who's a 1 cost that has Singer 3. As we get more cheap villains, this card is going to get better and better and better and better, and I guarantee within a year of it coming out, it might take the year, it might be quicker, it will be in a top 8 list for a tournament. And that is the bare minimum. It could be the sky's the limit. And again, maybe Arthur, Prince John, Goats, Ariel, and a few things still left to see. We're only just over halfway through the reveals. Maybe more things come out that do immediately make this warrant playing this card, just because it's cheap. The fact that you can sing it, there is a lot of good things to say about this card. So while I'm not going to sit here and say this is an immediate 4-of in every Ruby deck, I'm not going to be that biased. I don't need to be biased. Is it amazing straight away? Probably not. Is it useful straight away? Possibly. Do I think it's going to be amazing in the future? Oh yes. Oh yes. And that is it for our first ever Lorcana card reveal on the channel, and maybe it's the last, and if that's the case, then I'm still so grateful that I got to contribute towards a game that I have every belief is going to become one of the most famous card games of all time, to do something indirectly for Disney, which has been one of my favorite franchises my whole life. I really am so honored. I'm so privileged. I don't want anyone to think that I take it for granted. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button if you have enjoyed this reveal video. I know I have milked this card for all it's worth in this video. I don't care. I always will. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for future Lorcana content. I do top 8 and top 16 deck lists quite consistently. We've got Lorcana lore videos. Like we've had shorts that we've already done, and there's going to be more coming. I'm working on the Lorcana timeline and doing a deep dive into the Lorcana story, which I'm halfway writing a script for, so really excited for that. And yeah, I've got big plans for the channel, so please subscribe if you'd like to stay tuned for that. Hit the like button to show your support. Thank you once again so much for everyone that has supported, and to Disney Lorcana and the Ravensburger team, and we'll see you soon.